Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the board meeting of June 3rd, 2014, and we're calling it to order at 9:08 on that clock. I'll begin by introducing my colleagues. To my left, Vice Chair Fran Spivey Weber. To her left, Board Member Didi Diadamo. To my right, Board Member Tam Dodak. And to her right, Board Member Stephen Moore. Mr. Howard, will you introduce the staff that's attending? Thank you. I think your thing's not.
And Janine Townsend and Courtney Davis are assisting the board today.
Terrific. Now, the emergency evacuation procedure for those people who don't know the system, please look for the exit near you. If you hear an emergency alarm, we're to proceed carefully with all our belongings to Cesar Chavez Park across the street if you want to know when the all clear comes to come back. Otherwise, you can go wherever you like. The meeting's being webcast and recorded. That means it's important to turn off your cell phones or put them on silent, which I haven't done yet. Still haven't done? There we go. And also, when you speak at the microphone, try and get close to it like this. You can see the difference. It's hard to do because most normal people don't want something that close to them in front of their face. And help your neighbors. My neighbors help me. Try to remember to do that. It's just, even if you can be heard in the meeting room, the webcast won't pick it up. And so that's the importance of it for all those people who are listening or who will listen to it afterwards. So with that, we're on to public forum, which is a time for folks to make brief comments on anything that's not on the agenda today. If it is on the agenda, wait for the agenda item. No cards. And then if you do wish to speak on an agenda item, please go get a blue card from Janine and fill it out for her. That's important for our process and our records. Next, we're up for the minutes from the May 20th to 21st board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Good. Okay, board member report. Who wants to start? Steve, go ahead. I got eye contact.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair Marcus. I'm just have a couple things to report for the last couple weeks. On May 28th, I participated in the water dialogue that was held by the Metropolitan Water District. It included a lot of folks from predominantly Southern California. The topic was the SB4 program on hydraulic fracturing and oil well stimulation. And the panel I was on, I sat with myself, Tupper Hull of the Western States Petroleum Association, and Tatiana Gar of the Los Angeles Waterkeeper. And on May 29th, I was a speaker on a panel of state agency folks, and actually it was a two-day event. One was in Southern California that Vice Chair Fran Spivey Weber attended, and that was on May 22nd. And I attended the one in Northern California at Citrus Heights on May 29th. And this event was sponsored by the California Urban Water Conservation Council. And the name of the panel, or the name of the event, was the Achieving a New Normal in California Landscapes. And so I sat on a panel of state agency folks, including Diana Brooks of Department of Water Resources, Brian Leahy, the Director of Department of Pesticide Regulation, and Kyle Pogue of Cal Recycle. And we gave our perspective on what role state agencies play in achieving a new normal in California landscapes here in this drought year. It's a very hot topic on what incentives are out there. And I would just point out one observation I had was we touch California landscape decisions at the water boards kind of in two principal areas. One is in our stormwater program. We talked about the stormwater strategic planning we're doing insofar as landscaping becomes associated with drainage features in low impact development type settings. So there's a certain challenge, an opportunity there to create landscaping to improve water quality, whereas currently the mode tends to be more humps in parking lots versus swales in parking lots. So there's a whole set of opportunities and challenges associated with that. And then also, obviously, we look at water efficiency in the watershed and the type of landscaping decisions we make, the plants we choose to put in the landscape, and their water use efficiency. So those were two highlights of that discussion. And with that, thank you. And next board member.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Just one item to report. The Central Valley Regional Water Board recently held a 2-day event, I guess field trip / workshop is the best way to describe that, in Redding, California. It was focused mainly on 3 items: discharges of waste from marijuana cultivation sites, remediation of legacy mines, and timber harvest activities. The first day included field trips, I guess, of these particular issues, including very fascinating my first visit to Iron Mountain Mine and all the work. Yeah, it's amazing the work that's been done there. It also included a helicopter trip to see some of the marijuana cultivation sites, which I was too much of a coward to participate in, being height challenged. But I raised it because the Central Valley Board, I believe, sent an email to Mr. Howard, who then shared it to all of you. I would strongly encourage you, if you're not fearful of height like I am, to participate. Everyone that I spoke with who did get on the helicopter found it to be a very, very fascinating experience to get that bird's eye view of these marijuana cultivation sites and to actually see the impact they have on the surrounding area, not to mention on our waterways. It was a very well organized 2-day, very informative, and as you all know from your own experiences in the field, there's nothing like seeing something with your own eyes to really appreciate the magnitude of the challenges that we all have to deal with, but also to celebrate the success of all the hard work that everyone from the local, the state, as well as volunteers have put into addressing some of these problems that are on the ground.
That's great.
I did attend the Southern California landscape meeting that was essentially the same theme and same agencies represented, different people, but same agencies represented. And I think this whole area of landscape and stormwater and groundwater all merge together as we move forward. There's just a lot going on, and I am assuming we'll be working very closely with our Cal EPA family as well as with DWR to make sure that we have an integrated approach toward the new norm of landscape in Southern California in California. AB 32, the CARB adopted the AB 32 scoping plan update last week, and there are, I've forgotten how many recommendations there are for water, but those will be the guide for the next 5 years to try to position water in a way that improves its contribution to GHG reductions. So that's something to check out. It's on CARB's webpage.
Maybe
And
we should have an update on that.
that's a good idea.
Let's do an update at the board on that. Can we
Yeah.
just arrange with CARB when it's convenient to put that on an agenda? Because I think a lot of people would be interested in hearing that.
And I particularly want to call out Casa, who was there and quite vocal and very interested and engaged in moving forward on some of the things that wastewater can do to reduce GHGs. So it was very nice. I went to a convening, it was the third meeting, I believe, of a group in Southern California, in Los Angeles, actually, of environmental justice groups. LADWP was there, that was new. Water Replenishment District was there, as well as Orange County Water Agency, Groundwater Agency in Orange County. And US EPA was there, as well as Cal EPA, and then we had a team of the Water Board, Regional Board, and State Board, as well as DTSC at the local level and state level. And this started with the environmental justice folks being just super tired of dealing with plumes one by one by one by one, and having to find responsible parties and get them to actually pay before you start cleaning up. And meanwhile, more and more degradation has taken place in that region. So they said, you know, enough already. Let's look forward. Let's figure out a better approach. We are getting closer and closer to a better approach, and it is very exciting. And the water agencies are key to this. They want the space to put water for supply. They want to clean up and have water quality benefits as well. DTSC and the water boards are working together swimmingly. It's just inspiring, the whole thing. And so it was great to be there. And the next one will be at LADWP in August or September. Finally, I went on a tour of Ventura of basically the projects that we have helped fund or that have been funded by Prop 84 by DWR in Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. And I looked at wastewater projects as well as stormwater projects, and it was quite interesting. I was quite proud of the work that had been done. There's a lot more that needs to be done. So there will not be enough money to do it all, I am quite sure. But I think if we all do our part, that we can get close. Thank you.
That sounds great.
Okay, so I would say probably the highlight for me the last couple of weeks was that I finally got to attend a stakeholder meeting for CV salts. So I've had several briefings from staff, but finally was able to fit it into the schedule. And so it was just great to see all of the stakeholder involvement, a diverse stakeholder group trying to grapple with putting together a salt and nutrient management plan for Region 5. And I picked a good day to go because we heard from a consultant that was walking the group through a variety of different approaches, and of course focusing quite a bit on Region 8 and some of the work that's been done there. More questions than answers, but very good dialogue. So I hope to be able to continue to attend those meetings when I can. And then just to kind of keep Enviro screen on everybody's screen, I appreciate Member Dodek raising the concern about how water is addressed in the updated plan by OEHA. Board Member Moore and I had an opportunity to have a briefing, and so we raised that concern as well. And I know that they're going to be talking with staff about the possibility of collecting comment and seeing what can be done to address a different approach of looking at water somewhere between public health goal and MCL, and trying to incorporate true assessment. We also talked about the maps, the nitrate maps that our staff is still working on. Let's see here. I spoke before the Stanislaus County League of Women Voters on our favorite subject, drought, and groundwater. And then I also met on the 28th with a coalition of ag groups, pretty much every major ag group in the state regarding groundwater. They had an opportunity to just get their hands on the draft, and so had a lot of questions about it, and trying to keep them very much engaged in the process, and also gave them an update on curtailments. Thanks.
Great. Just a couple of things that I'll report on. One is I was able to speak on groundwater with a panel of folks to the Sustainable Conservation Advisory Board. Sustainable Conservation is a group that includes environmental, some governmental, and agricultural stakeholders primarily, to talk about issues and work in that space where frequently the connection isn't made, to find ways to move forward that are pro-environment and pro-agriculture. And it was just a very engaged conversation, and really, really quite good. And I'm a lot of respect for that group and the convening that it provides. And we should think about ways we can work with them more. I also had the opportunity both late last week and yesterday, two totally different meetings that happened to fall in the same period of time, to be at two different convenings of folks from the public sector, the private sector, the NGO sector, to talk about innovations in water policy, how to deal with where we are now, which is a more complex and challenging place on the water quality side, primarily, if not exclusively, well, maybe a little bit on the supply side, because they talked about efficiency and recycling, but a focus on innovations in terms of figuring out, in this day and age, with the advent of new technologies, the ability to do things in a more distributed way, as well as, in particular, the growing interest on the part of many people in implementing stormwater management tools that include low impact development, not just for water quality reasons, but for those multiple benefits that we've talked about here in terms of flood control, water supply, water quality, and greening of cities. And there were the guy who directs the Philadelphia program, which is the most advanced in the country. It's done as part of a consent decree with EPA for CSOs, combined sewer overflows. But it's an amazing story of how a city the size of Philadelphia did the math, did the calculations, and came up with a program to end up figuring out how to green their city rather than building another giant set of treatment plants or underground moats to hold their combined sewer overflows. I mean, it's the largest effort of its kind in the country. It involves paying people to green their properties to be used for stormwater control. And very interesting and different. LA was also there, Cincinnati was there, a number of places, along with people from the investment community and others, to try and figure out how can we pull together financing to help make this go, because obviously it's quite expensive for municipalities. Discussion about how to help smaller communities as well. But it was an inspiring place to be, with people encouraged to think about a future in which our cities are greener. We've dealt with water quality and water supply measures in an integrated way, just as we're trying to. It was interesting to be in a place where, again, because of a consent decree, as opposed to LA, which voluntarily is doing it, or other places that will be working with us as we evolve our MS4 permits. It just, the art of the possible was pretty exciting if you just look forward a couple of decades, because it's not something that happens overnight. The time scale aspect of it was sobering, but not completely impossible. We will see it in our lifetime. So again, fewer conclusions than just a sense of inspiration that there are folks all over the country trying to figure out how to do this work, including how to finance it, to take the burden off the public sector. So it was kind of exciting. In any event, I found that a big upper. All right, let me talk a little bit about the schedule for today. Our main issue, of course, is the recycled water general permit. We have a couple of uncontested items, and we have a drought update. We'll be moving the drought update forward to before the recycled water discussion, just so the folks who were here for that can get back to working on drought work as we go through the recycled water conversation, which is a very important one, and we want to give the time that it deserves. I want to flag that we'll be taking a mid-morning break at some point between 10 and 11, probably a little closer to 11, and depending on the number of speaker cards we have, we may go a little late before lunch, or we may take a break for lunch, but I'm going to wait and see how many speaker cards we have. I don't want to rush anything. I also don't want people to be low in blood sugar while they're trying to listen or speak, so I'll try and manage that with my colleagues and the rest of you. So with that, I think we're on to the uncontested items. You'll note on the agenda there's a bit of a wording change on one of them. Is there a need, Mr. Howard, to say anything about that? Or is it just a change? Just makes it shorter. Bill, how important is that? It was sent out. Okay. Terrific. No cards on the uncontested items? All right. Do I have a motion?
So moved for both.
Second?
Okay. Favor?
Aye.
Terrific. Let's move to item 6 then. Ms. Evoy.
Good morning. Very happy to be talking about everyone's favorite topic, the drought. So we're at the point in the year where the rains have stopped, the snow melt is occurring, though there isn't much of a snowpack, and the demands on the water system are increasing for all needs, especially irrigation. And so the effects of the drought are really being shown now in the water supply situation. And so with that, we have started into our phase of curtailments. And so a number of them happened in the last week. And so we have Brian Coates to tell us about that piece of the puzzle. And then we'll move to having Les talk a little bit about the status of the emergency regs you considered at a recent board meeting on Mill, Deer, and Antelope Creek, as well as the proposed development of additional emergency regs for statewide curtailment. And then we'll move into the status of the temporary urgency change petition on the projects. So that will give you a pretty good picture of where we are today. Brian?
My name is Brian Coates. I'm a senior engineer with the enforcement unit. Okay, so last week we had about some curtailment notices were issued for 3 watersheds. The Sacramento River watershed on May 27th, the Upper Russian River on May 28th, and the San Joaquin River watershed on May 29th. In addition to the following curtailment notice numbers, which I'll be going over shortly, statement holders of pre-14 and repairing claims of right were also notified that they may be subject to future curtailment due to projected water supplies. We've been getting some questions on people calling in indicating if they were curtailed or not, and they're not as of this time, but they were notified that it may happen in the future. For the specific boundaries that I'll be going over briefly here in each of the 3 watersheds, interested parties can go to our website and where we have the actual displayed map if they're interested in looking at that. Okay, so for the Sacramento River, and Sacramento River watershed bounded by the Pitt River in the north and some of the area north of Shasta all the way down to the North Delta. 5,506 post-14 water rights were curtailed. 2,648 actual curtailment notices were mailed, which impacts those 5,506 rights. And the reason for the difference in number was because some people have multiple rights per party. Okay.
Sorry, how many parties was that again?
Okay, so for the Sacramento River, we have 2,648 actual notices being mailed, which impacts 5,506 water rights.
Thanks.
Okay. For the Russian River, and this area was bounded by the area north of Healdsburg, above the confluence with Dry Creek. If 652 water rights were sent curtailment notices, and that affects all post-14 rights with a priority date after February 19th, 1954.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
For the San Joaquin River, this was issued on the 29th, on Thursday. That area was bounded by the San Joaquin River near Mendota Pool, traveling north all the way to the South Delta, which included the east side tributaries of the Stanislaus, Tuolumne, and Merced River. 3,158 water rights were curtailed, with 1,634 people actually receiving a notice. And again, the difference there being the multiple rights per party. Each of these 3 watersheds, if you were served with a curtailment notice, also included a reference within the notice to complete a compliance a curtailment certification form, basically documenting that you've ceased diversion under your water right, or you have provided an alternate basis of right to serve your current water needs. The requirement on the curtailment certification form is that it be filled out within 7 days of receipt of the notice, not 7 days from the date of the letter, 7 days of receipt of the notice. And they can submit the notice on our web form. We have a online portal on our web page. They can actually submit their information and then click submit. They can also download a copy of the certification form by PDF, and they can submit that to us by fax, email, or hard copy mail if they have an attachment. And that was another question that some of the people...
Is there a deadline by which people have to get this done?
Yeah, that's what I was
Okay, I'm sorry.
indicating earlier. It's 7 days from receipt of the notice.
So
You mean mail it?
if someone doesn't get to their mailbox, like for a month.
That is a problem. And they weren't sent certified, so that is a potential problem. But if we don't get the mail back to us, I mean, we can assume within a reasonable that it be, you have to exercise some, discretion there. But
What we could tell by the amount of certifications that we're getting back when people have generally gotten them in their mailbox, and we, will apply a reasonable amount of days.
right. And the issue with the curtailment certification form is that largely lets us know that they've ceased diversion, but also we're using that form and the information they present to us to schedule our inspections. For the inspections, as you know, the Scott River curtailment was issued on May 16th, and we're just now starting to get people in the field, I think next week, to schedule compliance with that certification form. And then for the Sacramento, Russian River, and San Joaquin River, it's likely that the inspections for those areas will be beginning around June 16th.
Could you give the numbers on the Scott?
I don't have the numbers exactly, but I think there were...
There were 212 notifications, and so we've been receiving certificates back on those. And as Brian said, the inspections will start then shortly.
Right.
Anything else, Brian?
No, that's it for me.
Okay, then we'll move on to Les. Are there no more questions on curtailments? Les?
Good morning. My name is Les Grober. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director for Water Rights, and I'll provide an update, as Barbara said, both for the emergency regs and a little bit about the temporary urgency change petition order for the Delta. First, for the fish flow, the drought emergency, minimum flows, emergency regs for the 3 tributaries, Mill, Deer, Antelope Creek. The resolution and the regs that were adopted by the board on May 21st were submitted to OAL on May 23rd, and they were approved by OAL yesterday and submitted to the Secretary of State. So we now have operative regulations. There was one change. We were asked for a clarification with regard to clarifying the standard under the part having to do with the local cooperative solutions. Asked for what's the standard under which you would agree to them that they would be valid. So we just changed some language and said that the deputy director would assure that no other users of water will be injured and that the flows and the agreements would occur. So with that change, the regs are effective. As of today, then, we can, and we are developing now, orders for Deer Creek. But the good news for Antelope Creek, as we heard in as the item was being discussed, we have agreements in place for Antelope Creek, which cover substantially all of the water in the watershed, about 95% of the water. So that obviates the needs for implementing the curtailment. And we've communicated that. We have that information on our webpage. Similarly, there seem to be enough agreements in place, and we're going to evaluate it today for Mill Creek. The same has occurred, so it also obviates the need to implement the regulations. And there is progress on Deer Creek, though it is not yet based on the latest information I have, it does not cover substantially all of the water, but NOAA and CDFW are continuing to pursue agreements at the same time that we're preparing a curtailment order for Deer Creek.
Did we provide correspondence on the Antelope Creek verifying that certain aspects of our order were met?
Yes, so we have, that's a memo, that was a memo that Tom Howard actually prepared and communicated that to the board that we posted on our webpage, and we've also sent that to interested parties, and we're going to, we're doing all of this quickly, so we're trying to communicate it, certainly broadly and getting it to the people that are most interested in knowing.
No, that's good.
So-
As Chair Marcus noted at our last hearing, that our timeliness will be important for the credibility of this exercise, so I appreciate that.
Yes, and with the timeliness comes, we'll be making some further corrections on some things, because we have some dates that we need to revise and things like that, but it's not important things, it's things, the job is getting done.
Thank you.
I have some additional questions there. So mill, it looks like mill would be likely. Could you talk a little bit more about that and sort of a time frame?
Sure, so it looks like as of Friday and then into today, we have, on Friday, we thought that what were in play were agreements that would also cover about 80% of the water, so that would be substantially enough water also to assure that we would be achieving the goals. So we'll be evaluating that additional agreements that we just received, signed as of today, to determine that it would obviate the need to go forward with curtailments. So yeah, so it looks like we have a success on Mill Creek as well.
Okay, and then on...
And we'll be communicating that with a final memo and send that to interested parties.
Great. And then on Deer, to the extent appropriate, if you could talk about some of the parties that you've been working with on Deer.
It seems for Deer Creek, we've got an agreement that I'm not sure that we have. We don't have it yet with the major water right holder, but we have with one that covers about 20% of the water, so that's not substantially all. So there's still at least one entity, and I'm sorry I don't have the name here, I don't recall, but we're going to be continuing, and NOAA and CDFW are continuing to work with them. And they've been actually communicated to us, much appreciative of developing the regs, because it has helped them to get agreements in place. But I don't have the specifics for you.
Is that where TNC has property?
TNC, that was Mill Creek,
Oh.
and that's one of the agreements that we've just received for Mill Creek.
Okay,
So that's why we have a success there.
thanks.
So we also had as an item at the last board meeting, the workshop for various alternatives, options for emergency regs for the Delta watershed. As was communicated that time by Tom Howard, and moving forward now, we're communicating that we're going to move forward with developing emergency regs just based on our normal processes, based on reported water use, and to do that so that we would be prepared to present that to you for consideration at the next board meeting, probably the second day of the board meeting. So we'll be looking at June 17th, 18th, likely the 18th. And we intend to get out 7 days before whatever we're proposing for consideration. We're going to get that out for comment and review. And we'll take it up then, and we'll see where we go. Finally, any questions? Okay. Finally, just a very brief update on the TUCP order. Since things, as Barbara had said now, things are stabilizing, and sadly they're stabilizing, and that there's no surprises in terms of increases in flow, changing flow. The snow is melting rapidly or has melted. So what's important now for the real-time drought operations team continuing to monitor conditions, and though you had it reported to you almost 2 weeks ago, what is currently occurring, they're still operating on the high end of releases from project reservoirs, so depletions are at the higher end of what was anticipated, but not above that. But that's countered by also inflows generally being on the higher end of the forecast. So far they're continuing to operate to plan in terms of how reservoirs are being operated, but we're also just getting into that more critical temperature management period on the Sacramento River. So I think it'll be important, everything else that we're doing here, how it will have an effect on that too in terms of achieving success with that. one of the key concerns that they have now, and I'm not sure if they shared that with you, we're entering into June now, a period of particularly high tides. So they're very much operating now not to our adjusted delta outflow objectives, but really delta outflow that's needed to manage salinity in the delta. And because, of course, that's one of the key goals of the overall management. So we'll provide updates as that proceeds. So I think
Is
as
the
you-
number different, though? Is
I'm sorry?
the actual number different than what's included in the order? In
they're
order
actually
to
at
address the high,
bottom flow that was approved in the order is about 3,000 CFS delta outflow, but they're finding now with even current conditions, they're operating to more like 4,000 or even a bit higher, and there might be a need to go higher still.
Just to keep the
Because
salt.
ultimately, they're operating to manage salinity, and they're doing that in conjunction with the operation of the delta cross-channel gates.
It's going to be a long summer.
Yes, and I think as they reported also, though they're not currently pursuing and don't contemplate putting in barriers, they still want to get their permits in place. So as part of that, we're going to be continuing to process their application for water quality certification for barriers. And this is, again, one of those things in the event of another dry year, if the fall turns out to be exceptionally dry, then things will have to be reevaluated.
Right. And I don't want to get into the merits because it's not really noticed for that, but do you have any estimate on when a draft, I think where we left it after our 2 days or a day of hearings on the temporary urgency change order petitions was that staff was going to work on a draft order for us to consider and look at and figure out how to act on that. Obviously, we haven't decided what we want to do, but is there a draft that I may have missed or that is coming soon?
No, there is not yet a draft, and that's something that we're contemplating, say, for July. So you will be seeing something later this month, I would think,
Okay.
timeframe. And that would be for the board, for a board order, as had been contemplated in that last workshop.
Right, and presumably you're going to meet with us since we
Yes.
can't talk except in a noticed thing so that you have a sense of the feedback from the board.
That's correct.
Okay.
And in the interim, that we don't see anything, there had been a couple of other things in play that there still might require the need for an interim
more?
executive director order.
Okay.
And those have to do, though it seems one has gone away in terms of transfers from InDelta, but another one having to do with salinity in parts of the Delta, Contra Costa salinity standards, number of days. They still don't know exactly what they're going to be operating to, but when we get that, we'll respond quickly.
Okay. And presumably you're meeting with the Contra Costa folks,
Yes.
too?
I mean,
Okay.
though we have not been directly, but the department certainly has.
Okay. Thank you all. Thanks for your hard work. I know people have been working 24/7 for an awfully long time, and we really appreciate how hard and complicated it is.
Thank you.
Thanks. Moving along to item number 5. This is one where we have an awful lot of comment on all sides, not just two sides, but all sides of the issue. And I want to thank people for their very clear comments and thank staff for the work you've done to try and, obviously you can't agree or make changes based on all comments, but I know you've put in an awful lot of time to try and do that, both before and with this new change sheet. So I'm hoping in your presentation you can also talk specifically about some of the changes that you've made in response to comments.
Where's my clicker? Okay. Good morning, Chair Marcus and members of the board. My name is Scott Couch. I'm a supervising geologist with the Division of Water Quality. I apologize in advance. The presentation is not polished. We've been locked in a room for the last 3 weeks eating nothing but donuts and hummus. And this and some strange crackers. This is the general order for recycled water use. What I'll go through today, the background, purpose, coverage. These are the things in the presentation. We'll look at the general order, roles and responsibilities, and then comments. I don't plan to address the comments and changes in the presentation. It's going to be relatively short, and then we figured we would have time for speakers to come up, and then we could address their concerns at that point.
But just to be clear, I'm just trying to help the speakers make the best use of their time. Even the change sheet is out, so people should be able to see where you have responded to their comments, although they won't have a explanation of what you did or didn't do. You'll be able to clarify that. So, but for the most part, they'll be able to see changes made that are responsive to their comments before they speak.
Correct.
Or they should have been able to.
And that's what we've been working on. We received a lot of comments, and that's what we've been working on and making changes to the order, things that we could do, and then we'll focus on things that we have, changes that we haven't made, and the reasons for that at the comment period. So why are we doing this? This was developed in response to the governor's drought proclamation. The first proclamation was issued on January 17th, and there was another one issued on April 25th. After the first drought proclamation, we set about looking to what we could do to encourage the use of recycled water in order to conserve potable water supplies and raw water supplies. We met with representatives at the California Department of Public Health. We met with our colleagues at Department of Water Resources. We met with our people at the regional boards through our roundtable process. We also had individual meetings with California Coastkeeper, the Water Reuse Association, and the Central Valley Clean Water Association. And there were probably other phone calls and other consultations that we had as well. So the purpose of the general order was to streamline permitting for uses of recycled water that typically are a low threat to water quality, and relieve individual users the requirements to apply for individual waste discharge requirements. So this is a general order that the producer or the distributor of the recycled water will sign on as the administrator of a recycled water program, and individual users will be relieved of having to get permits for their use areas. This will provide coverage for other recycle uses. The process now is there are waste discharge requirements that are issued for the recycled water facility. There may be water reclamation requirements that are issued for the users. There may be master reclamation requirements that combine the WDRs and the water reuse requirements, and this will operate similar to that. Okay. So this allows, as I said, producers and distributors can sign up to be the administrator. They would put together a recycled water program, and they would issue permits through that program to the individual users. The source of the recycled water is limited to treated municipal wastewater. It's not for industrial uses, it's not for treated industrial, it's not for other types of recycling. And these are uses compliant with California Code of Regulations, Title 22. I would point out that the legislature has found that recycled water uses compliant with Title 22 are safe for human health and the environment. The State Water Board has found that these uses compliant with Title 22 are safe. The California Department of Public Health has also found that these uses are safe. So what are the uses that are allowed? These are the major categories in Title 22. There are listings up under these major categories, but basically the irrigation can either be for agricultural irrigation or landscape irrigation. There could be uses for impoundments, certain cooling tower, industrial type uses, and other purposes that are listed in Title 22. What's not allowed are potable uses. This is only for non-potable uses of recycled water, and it is not for groundwater indirect potable use, which would be groundwater recharge or replenishment through either spreading basins or injection wells. Okay, so here's sort of a layout of the process in the lower left corner. The State Water Board is the foundation that hopefully we've prepared a draft of the order. Hopefully this order will be adopted, and we'll roll out the implementation and provide support to the regional boards. The order is for the regional boards to issue to or to enroll dischargers. They approve the water recycling program that the administrator puts together. They conduct inspections and review the monitoring reports and coordinate with CDPH with the Title 22 engineering requirements. So any engineering requirements that CDPH has will be incorporated into the notice of applicability that is issued by the Regional Water Board. On the right-hand side, this is a schematic of the water recycling program that the administrator will put together for the enrollees to comply with the Title 22 requirements and the CDPH requirements and any requirements that the regional board has for the program. And then the users comply with the program and make sure that everything is done in accordance with the general order. So we had several comments regarding CEQA requirements, California Environmental Quality Act. The second drought proclamation that was issued by the governor on April 25th had a provision in there that suspended several directives, including requirements for environmental analysis for CEQA. Also directed us to issue these general waste discharge requirements. So we received 34 formal comment letters which have been provided to you in your packet. I assure you that staff have spent a long time looking through and considering all of the comments, some approximately 250 individual comments. We made a number of changes to the draft order and posted the change sheet with those changes incorporated, and that was reissued. The change sheet was issued on Friday prior to this meeting, and we will talk some about that when the commenters come up. So at that point, unless you have questions for us right now, we could open this up to public comment. And would you like me to introduce the people that are here with me?
For the benefit of people who are sitting on the other side of you or on the listening in who can't see the name tags or otherwise know everybody here, that would be a great thing to do.
Okay, I apologize for that. To my right is the branch chief for groundwater here in water quality, Shala Faranak. To my immediate left is Tim O'Brien, who is the technical lead and my staff expert on these general orders. To his left is Tim Regan, the legal counsel for Division of Water Quality, so I will refer to them as O'Brien and Regan.
Yeah, I think that's why. I was at a meeting with two Nickies and a Nick, who were the staff.
And we also have Brian Bernardos with CDPH here, who is available to come up as well.
Thank you. Why don't you go ahead and come up, so if we have questions, it'll be faster. And then I'll turn to my colleagues, see if they have questions first. I do appreciate how much time you've spent respecting and responding to the comments on this. And I think being able to answer questions as we go is good. I may also ask you towards the end to sum up more categories, but I want to see what comes up here, because there'll be oral comments that may be different than what came up, or there may be a finer point put on some of the written comments by their writers as we go through this conversation together. So, and I'll save some of my other I have some questions at the outset, but I'm going to save them till after I listen to what everybody has to say, because that may resolve some of them or add to some of them. Are there any questions before we move to public comment? Okay. Well, why don't we move right ahead? How many are there? 8? All right. 9. I thought there would be more, but okay, fine. All right. First, we have Dave Smith from Water Reuse. CASA and Aqua. Additional time requested in lieu of 3 speakers. Is that, Dave and Bobby, you're nodding that, okay. So you want 15, sure.
Thank you very much.
15 minutes, so he's taking 3 5-minutes. So the rest of you think of yourselves as 5 minutes. And I'll look through and see what else people have asked for.
Thank you, Chair Marcus, and good morning, members of the board. I submitted yesterday some proposed changes to change sheet number 1. Did that make its way to you in your package? Because I have hard copies here if you don't have it. Great.
I would love it, so I'm not going to the iPad and back and having to re-put in my password every time it... You didn't? Oh. Oh, sorry, normally I forward things that I don't see, but I didn't get to it till this morning.
Talk about the vagaries and difficulties of having several Tims and other common names. Being Dave Smith, I attended a meeting recently where there was 3 other Dave Smiths in the meeting, so.
Isn't that a movie, Being Dave Smith? Isn't that a movie?
Being Dave Smith, right.
So good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm here representing Water Reuse, and we have collaborated with a number of other organizations that, Madam Chair, you mentioned earlier. And I'd like to start out by recognizing, as you have done, the Herculean effort by your staff to sort through these comments and produce a document that is responsive to the comments, certainly responsive to our comments in most cases. And with the changes made, we have just a few issues remaining that I'd like to focus on here, and they fall into 2 categories. In our view, some of the changes made create or could be stated in a more clear fashion